we might ought to explain to folks. Phyllis is staying with her mom during the week, and, well, all the time, really.
Yes.
And Tamara comes down and relieves her on Sunday morning, so Phyllis can come and play the piano. Tamara hadn't moved out of town, she'll be back.
Well, she's still the one planning all the music and taking care of all that, so.
All right. If you were wondering where Tamara is, she's got her hands full too. Okay, oh, by the way, Donna, it appears, has kind of turned the corner this week. I went out to cut the grass yesterday. She come walking up the street by herself. She'd walked a mile. I had no idea where she was. Said she took her phone with her. I said, I'm running a lawnmower. Do you really think I could hear the phone if it was ringing? So anyway, she's doing good. She's got to walk 2 miles before 6 weeks. So, and she thinks she might be able to come to church next Sunday just to sit, Larry. You're still on. So y'all continue to pray for these that are out sick. Well, I wanted to talk to you today. In fact, the message, since we're starting Romans on Wednesday evening. Now, Wednesday evening at 5. Okay. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
There were 2 or 3 things going on. Wednesday evening at 5, Kim.
Yeah, but y'all are in Sunday school room.
Okay, we're in the Sunday school room. All right.
That's fine.
Well, how are the boys gonna see us if we're in the Sunday school?
They're gonna see you because y'all will come down and have a bite with us or get a drink.
Oh, okay.
We'll be eating and you'll, you know.
It's about pizza time, isn't it?
I don't know if she's going back there or something. I don't tell Teresa what to do.
Good. Hey, Glenn, don't tell her either,
I
so.
don't tell grown people what to do.
I tell her, you just don't take.
Yeah. Well, since we're gonna be starting Romans, I've studied this week, and today's message is out of the 12th chapter of the book of Romans. If you'd like to turn there. And the message is about a call to commitment. Today, there are close to 100 million church members in America. Yet, why are they not making more of a moral or spiritual impact on our country? Why is that on Sunday mornings, thousands of churches have more empty pews than full pews? Why is it that the average Sunday school class in America has 8 to 16 people in it? The average worship service has 84 people. Why is it that only 50% of the number on any church membership roll can be expected to attend any particular Sunday? If Christians really believe in a real heaven and a real hell, how can we all be so silent? Because the answer to all these questions is very simple. God's people have made a decision about Jesus. We accept Him, we get baptized, but a lot of God's people have never made a commitment to Jesus. There is, of course, a difference between a decision and a commitment. When we got married at my house 54 years ago, we made a commitment to each other, and we've stuck by that commitment. But other commitments are for people that work jobs. My first real job, I stayed for 30 years. It was a commitment. There were a lot of days I thought, man, I need to leave this place, but I hung in there and stuck it out. The reason that the church is not making more of an impact in our society is that many church members made a decision about Christ, but they have never made a commitment to Christ. You know, when the pilot of a giant airline, you've been seeing on the news, Spirit Airlines going under. I've never flown Spirit, just never had the opportunity. But when one of these pilots of these airlines is speeding down the runway, there's a certain point on the runway that it passes where staying on the ground is no longer an option. When the pilot crosses that line, he is committed to the air. He must take off, or a disastrous crash is very imminent. At that point, the pilot can no longer change his mind, can he? He's committed. Phyllis's husband is a pilot. He knows what I'm talking about, that magic line. Unfortunately, churches are filled with members who have never gotten off the ground. They've been sitting there gunning their engines, making noise, warming up, but going nowhere. You know what, though? They've been planning on it. They've been meaning to. They've been wanting to. They've been trying to. They've been going to, aiming to, hoping to, but they have never gotten off the ground. So I want to challenge you this morning to get off the ground. And here in Romans chapter 12, the Apostle Paul issues a clear call for a commitment when he says, listen, verses 1 and 2. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You know, I say it often, as Christians, we're no longer of this world, we're only passing through it. But this word that Paul uses here, this present, is a technical Greek word used for offering a sacrifice. This is a voluntary act. It does not say, I command you. It says, I beseech you, or I beg you. This is something that is completely up to you. He says the motivation is to be remembering the mercies of God. Hey, right where you're at, close your eyes for just a minute. And for just a moment, think of all that God has done for you in your life, would you? Think of the mercies of God based on what you have received. Can you really say that you owe God nothing? Because when we reflect on the goodness of God, how can we be anything other than committed? You know, when people ask you oftentimes, how are you today? I hear many people say, better than I deserve. Folks, let me tell you something. You don't want what you deserve. Not in this world. Paul goes on and he says, it's reasonable service based on what we have received. It's logical that we would commit ourselves to God. Under the sacrificial system, the animal to be sacrificed was committed to the priest. It was killed and consumed on the altar. The believers are told that they are to present themselves as living sacrifices, with the understanding that there is no such thing as a partial sacrifice or a partial commitment. It's possible to be sort of committed. You're either committed or you're not committed. It's impossible to be sort of committed. It's not possible to be a partial sacrifice. You know, there's a story I read not long ago about a pig and a chicken walking down the road together. They walked along, they read a sign advertising a breakfast to benefit the poor. The chicken said to the pig, you and I should go and donate a ham and egg breakfast. You know, the pig replied, well, wait a minute, not so fast. For you, chicken, it would just be a contribution, but for me, it would be a total commitment. The pig understood that it is not possible to offer a partial sacrifice. Neither is it possible to offer a partial commitment. And that's where most Christians are today. Today, I want you to see 3 clear calls to a commitment that every believer has to face. We're going to talk about personal growth. We're going to talk about the local body. And we're going to talk about ministry. Here we go. Commitment to personal growth. We're called to commit ourselves as disciples. You know, as disciples, we're learners. You see what Riley did this morning? He learned. He's learned the books of the Bible. We should never reach a point in our life which we are no longer learners. We should be learning every day. We never reach a point in life in which we have arrived. A lot of people think they've arrived. Even Paul said about himself in Philippians, "Not that I have already obtained or am already perfected, but I press on. Brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended." Make a commitment to continue to grow spiritually. You got to take positive steps to do so. You got to start a daily Bible reading plan, maybe. Set aside time each day to pray. Never give up on learning. Many people lay in bed at night, and before they fall asleep, they read their Bible. Or maybe they pray. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a morning person. I do it in the mornings when I get up. That's the first thing I do every morning. I think, what did I do yesterday? What am I going to do today that's different? And then I pray. So, commitment to personal growth is very important. Number 2, commitment to the local body. That's the church. You know, I've watched the parade of people through the churches that I've been in. I wonder why so few commit themselves to a local body of believers in a very significant way. Many sit and soak and do little else, and they flee at the first sign of trouble or pressure. They fail to become involved or to give. They criticize all that is wrong with the local congregation. You know, we need to accept the challenge to commit ourselves to responsible membership. What do I mean by responsible membership? You know, the local church is the first level of commitment outside of our personal relationship with the Lord. The local church, even with all of its imperfections, it's because it's full of people, is still the Lord's major avenue through which He accomplishes His work. The church gathers for worship, teaching, fellowship, to gain power to carry out the ministry as each member is scattered to the various places of responsibility out in the world every day. For some people, church attendance and participation rank with visiting grandpa's grave. You know, it's decoration month. Calling your college roommate and maybe viewing the new wing of the art museum. You'll never get around to it. You have every intention of doing it unless, of course, something else important comes up. Isn't that how we look at it? I'm afraid it is. Is it important? You know, I got to tell you something. On Sunday mornings when Sunday school starts, I'm walking around looking. I missed Doris this morning. Doris, I'm sorry I missed you. And I was concerned because she's always here. And I missed her when she came in. And I said something to Glenn. I said, Glenn, I'm concerned for Doris. He said, I think she's here. So I walked back down that hallway and there you sat. And that made me feel good. I want to see you on Sunday morning. Do you understand that? More than me, He wants to see you. That's what's important. You can please me, but it doesn't go anywhere. You got to please the Lord our God. You need to be here on Sundays. And if it's possible, you need to be here on Wednesday. We only meet twice a week. Twice a week. Some of us go to more doctors than come to church twice a week. I went over to talk to Jimmy the other day, and he and I were bragging about which doctors we've been to see. I tell you, the doctors, heart surgery, back surgery, I'm almost in the poorhouse over doctors. Because when you show up, they expect to be paid. In far too many lives, church attendance seems to always come in last place. You know, commitment to church is deeper than just attending the worship service. But it does usually begin there. But if you really want to get to know the people of the church you're in, it's going to be in a Sunday school class. We don't have but one. I'd love to see us have 2 Sundays. Well, we got 2. Yeah, Kim's here. Well, we need 3, Kim.
We do need 3. We need 4.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We need older kids, younger kids, and 2 of y'all.
Yeah. You know, commitment to the local church demands loyalty. When we criticize our church to the outside community, you know what we're doing? We're telling people I'm an idiot for going there. So don't be criticizing your church. Who's going to come with you to a church that you've torn down? You need to be loyal to the staff and the workers of the church. Do not be guilty of spreading seeds of discontent.
Amen.
There's too much discontent out in the world today.
Amen.
You know, one of my pet peeves is people driving on the road that don't use turn signals. I cannot understand. Now, years ago, we used our arm out the window. Y'all remember this? Turning right, turning left. And by the way, if you were stopping, you put your arm all the way down out the window. Well, now we have automatic turn signals. You can use your turn signal to change lanes. You can use your turn signal to make a turn. People are driving brand new $50,000 cars, and I think they're saving the turn signals. I don't know what they're saving it for, but that's what they do. Now, let's talk about our commitment to the ministry. Because commitment to a local church means deciding on a church home and moving in for a permanent stay. Can you think for just a moment that you went and bought a house? It don't have to be a new house. It can be a house, place with a roof on it. And you moved in there for a week, and you decided that after a week, well, hey, I just don't like it. Well, are you going to go buy another house? Maybe you just said, well, I think I'll just go get an apartment with people on all sides of me through paper-thin walls. We wouldn't do that, would we? The church is the same way. When you find a church that you like, you need to put down some roots. Commitment to the local church means actively using the talents and the gifts to serve in the various ministries of the church. That's what Kim's talking about. She's up here talking about handing out popcorn, having a car show. Y'all need to understand, Kim can't do it by herself. She has to have some help. Now, if Kim could do it by herself, she'd do it. Because she had good training when she was in my youth group. No. But Paul reminds us here in Romans chapter 12 that we have different gifts in verse 6 according to the grace that God has given us. I was sitting in the office back there a little while ago, and I've got where my license to the ministry is hanging on the wall, and then my ordination is hanging on the wall. And there's 5 years between the licensing and the ordination. And they were both in this building, in that office. It took 5 years to where people knew that I was the real deal. A lot of people step back and say, well, he won't last. That's not true. Glenn Jr., oh, Glenn Jr. used to be the meanest kid you ever seen. And now he's the chairman of our deacons. He stuck, didn't he? Glenn, how long you and Teresa been married? 100 years now? They stuck together. Oh, it don't mean they don't have problems. Who don't have problems? But they're together. Ministry means putting your gifts to work. And we need to be a part of what the church is doing. We don't need to just be spectators. That's what Kim's trying to get across to us. Because God has placed individuals with various gifts in each church. And if the persons with those gifts are not using their gift, then those jobs are just not being done. If you've been blessed with a gift and you're not using them for God's glory, now this might scare you. I hope it does. He might take your gifts away from you. I have seen that happen. We must commit ourselves to the ministry of the local church and use the spiritual gifts that God has given all of us. So, Kim, you got Glenn and Kathy lined up to go to the high school Friday to make popcorn. And who you got lined up to go to the elementary school besides you?
Anna's gonna come,
Anna's not even a member here.
but it's good for her to come.
Well, I know it is. But it looks like one of our church members would be there with you. Maybe I'll show up.
Come on,
Yeah. That principal likes me, I think.
she loves us.
So here's the conclusion to this little message today. I want to know, would you make a commitment today? Are you really making a difference in the church that you're in? And if you're not, here's a church that could use you. You understand what I'm saying? If you have not committed yourself to the Lord, remember I'm using that word commit, then you need to begin there. Once you've committed yourself to the Lord, will you commit yourself to your personal growth? Will you make a commitment that you're going to look for opportunities to put your talents and your abilities to work for the Lord? Because the greatest ability is availability. You know what? Don't wait for somebody to ask you, how hard is it to volunteer? That's what we need you to do, is to volunteer to serve the Lord. As the old football coach at Gardendale used to say to me, back in those days, I didn't quite understand it. I understand it much better today. I just come out of the lineup on the field. And he'd come over and get the front of that helmet and look at me and say, Davis, get in the game. I thought I just came out of the game. He wasn't talking about the physical part. He was talking about this. We need to get in the game. And the only way you can get in the game is to be committed to God. I hope you're committed today. Let's pray. Father, thank you for an opportunity to